Hi, I'm Gemma Montgomery and welcome to the Excel with Ease podcast, bringing together service-based business owners in the aesthetic, beauty, medical health and wellness sector. Here we discuss different topics that will help you grow your business with ease while supporting your ultimate life vision. Hi there, welcome to this week's podcast episode, broadcasting from a very rainy and very misty North York Moors dog walk. So this week I want to talk about external validation and how this might show up in the world of aesthetics, in the world of any kind of service-based business, and how when we source our power outside of ourselves, when we're at the whim of everybody else's expectations, when we're not getting the external validation that we feel we need, or when we're not going to meet somebody else's expectations. I want to talk about how we can take back our power and become aware of the external seeking might be showing up in our business and in our life. So I've now had 3 months off social media. I've got no work social media at all. So I don't know if you heard the podcast episode where I spoke about the dark side of social media, but I'd had my social media accounts for 16 years and my personal account for, since 2008. So I don't know however long that is. And not having social media properly, especially in terms of work, has really given me time to go a little bit more inwards in a little bit more of a self-reflection kind of mode, and being able to observe what's actually going on in the world of social media and in the world of external validation and external pressures. So here's how we source our power outside of ourselves and how seeking external validation shows up in business. So let's start with social media. People seek external validation by their number of followers, their number of likes, by comparing themselves to other people in the similar kind of industry, measuring their worth, their value around somebody else's social media account within the same industry. So common. Apart from me, I don't do that now. I do not look at anybody else's social media accounts within my industry unless I'm giving support to people that I'm mentoring or people that have come through the training academy. It's just something that I don't do. Because I know myself, and I know if I start looking at what everybody else is doing, it completely throws me off my centre and it completely throws me off track. And this isn't just other social media accounts that do what I do. It can be in personal life as well, scrolling, comparing. And whilst I'm a sort of person that thinks I don't compare, somewhere it goes into the subconscious that, am I enough? Am I this? Am I that? I'm not doing this. I'm not doing that. My house, my interiors don't look like this. My body doesn't look like this. Blah, blah, blah. And it's a way that seeds can be planted, but seeds that are not good to our own internal worth. When we're looking around constantly in such a noisy world at what everybody else is doing, when we start measuring what we're doing, how successful we think we are against other people, it puts us in a fear mentality. It puts us in a lack mentality. And all we do when we're in that kind of mentality is we just block the natural flow of abundance. And in the world of aesthetics, likes and follows mean nothing. I cringe when I say this because I don't like talking too much about numbers, but I was able to create a 6-figure business with, I think I had something like 1,600 followers on Facebook and Instagram. Not a huge following, just organic, just, geographically local people, nothing too far and wide. And for me, that was enough. The income that I created on the amount of days that I was willing to work so I could still get a life was my own definition of success. So, don't be fooled as well. When you do look around and you see someone, 150,000 followers, it means nothing. You know nothing about what's going on in that other business, that other person's life. You know nothing about their revenue. nothing about their actual bottom line profit, nothing about what's going on in their personal life, really. So we need to stop looking at what everybody else is doing, becoming distracted. We need to stay in our own lane and bring all that energy, all that power back inside to ourselves. So even if this means unfollowing, really limiting the time that you do spend on social media, really looking at what accounts you are following and what kind of content you're absorbing. Because the way that the algorithms work now, you look at something that's quite fear-inducing or is triggering or makes you feel any kind of lack, any kind of fear, the algorithm is just going to show you more of that, which is a good metaphor for life, really, where you kind of put your focus in certain areas, the more you get of the same. So why put our focus on comparison? Why put our focus on lack? Why put our focus on we're not enough? We don't want more of that. We want to put that energy right back into ourselves, center ourselves, ground ourselves, sit with ourselves, and feel into what it is that we actually want as an individual, as a human, what makes us happy. Because you will feel it. If you're having a little bit of a down day and you go on social media, you happen to come across somebody else within this industry that's looking super successful, blah, 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 whatever, we all define success in different ways. It only takes that moment of trigger for you to spiral into self-doubt. And those voices can be there without you knowing it. You might be leaving the clinic, walking back to your car, feeling, oh God, I'm not enough. I'm never going to be like that. I can't be like them. Who wants to come to me? All those negative voices and that lack and that fear mentality is the one shoe away that we are going to block abundance coming to ourselves. So external validation via social media, worrying about how many likes we've got on a post, worrying about how many followers we have, how many unfollowers we have. It's all just distraction, complete distraction from you, your own lane and your own business. So bring that focus right back in, right back to yourself. Unfollow who you need to unfollow. Really look at the accounts that you are following. Is this adding to my life? Is it adding to my well-being, my inner state of peace, my inner state of calm, a state of simplicity? Or is it simply adding fear, lack, and chaos? So just a little bit of food for thought there. And just remember, nothing is ever quite what it seems. So when you see somebody with lots of likes and lots of followers, remember, you know nothing. You know nothing about what's really coming in terms of revenue. You know nothing about what their actual bottom line profit is. You know nothing about their work-life balance. You don't know how many hours, how many days those people are having to work to get what they physically require. And you don't need to know. That's their story. That's their life. It's not you. You focus on you, your own life, stay in your own lane. So how else might seeking external validation show up? Okay, so let's look at meeting clients' expectations. So a big spoiler alert here is the law of averages. The more people that you do, the more chance you've got that you're going to come across certain clients, certain patients, whatever term you want to use, whose expectations you're never going to meet. And if you take that personally, and if that begins to crush your soul, if that makes you begin to spiral and doubt yourself, we need to really be getting a handle on that now. And let's contextualize this. There's billions of people on the planet, all with their own unique stories, their own unique journey, their own unique experiences, which have then formed their own unique beliefs and thought patterns. How are you, as an individual, ever going to meet everybody's expectations? It would be an impossible task. And you may have a day where you've got someone who's like, I'm not really sure of the results of this. And you might have a full day where everybody else is really happy with the results that's been achieved, but you will always go back and focus on that one. And why do we do that? Because it's easier to believe. It's all linked back to our self-worth. It's easier sometimes to believe the bad things than it is the good. If again, us as individuals have formed our own beliefs that are quite limiting about what's truly possible, we may be linking it back to things that have gone wrong in the past, times where we've been riding high and then we've suddenly had the shoe drop. So it's being able to go inside and recognise what beliefs we're holding, what our own triggers are, but also recognising that those people that come into clinic have their own belief system, their own triggers, their own projections, and you're never going to meet expectations 100% of the time. So a good way to deal with this is, I want you to remember you can only do what the product can physically do. You've been trained to know where to put that product physically. So hopefully it's nice and safe and nice and natural in terms of results. And you can only work with the client's budget. Everything else is out of your hands. You can only do your best. So your best will be going in with the right intentions, feeling that you're going to do this to the best of your ability, as safely as you can, placing products in the correct landmarks, knowing how to stay safe, knowing you've done a thorough consultation, you've helped to try and set those expectations with the person that you're going to treat. But then everything else is completely out of your hands. So a good example of this is one of my lovely ladies that came through for accredited practical training. She had somebody in that was just making her feel a little bit unsure and a little bit nervous. And she started to question whether she could meet this lady's expectations. Now I know, because I've trained this lady, that she's amazing. She is more than capable. And I would trust her 100% to go off and do all the clients in the world. But this lady was knocking her off her centre a little bit. She'd done the consultation really thoroughly. In the consultation, it emerged that this lady had been to kind of multiple practitioners, which again is a little bit of a red flag. It sounded like she'd done something to let another practitioner down, and this practitioner had to charge her the full treatment amount, even though she'd not had it. So for me, as a clinician kind of point of view, there was a lot of red flags there from the start. But as practitioners as well, we're empathetic, hopefully kind people, understanding, and we decided to go ahead with the treatment. So what I said to this lady that was about to treat her, I said, look, if she's making you feel really unsure, why don't we come to my clinic, and we'll just do this lady together. I think deep down for me, even though it was a red flag, I didn't want this red flag lady to knock this lady that I trained off a centre, because I think that's when you're at your most vulnerable in the beginning. Everybody's new, you're second guessing yourself, doubting yourself. So this lady came into clinic. Again, I helped to reaffirm and set the expectations. This lady seemed to understand, and we went ahead and did the treatment together. So I didn't inject, but I was there, I was guiding. It was the way that I would have done the treatment. I would have done it no differently. So at the end, we got the pictures. The results were amazing, considering she didn't have a high budget. The higher the budget, we could have done a lot more. But for the budget that we had, the results were fantastic. The pictures just showed it. She seemed really happy, and then she went away. And then lo and behold, I think it were about a week or two after, she got in touch with the lady that I trained and said, oh, I'm not so sure. I just don't think it's really made much difference. She said, I went to see so-and-so and they looked and they said, oh, I don't know if it's really done much. I had to have a really good pep talk and just explain about different people's kind of expectations. Now, this lady was happy. She'd been happy for 2 weeks. But then she came across somebody else who had their own expectation levels, their own beliefs, blah, blah, blah. And that started to knock the lady that had been treated off a centre and started her questioning. Can you see how she's seeking external validation from somebody and relying on what that other person thinks and feels to validate herself and whether this treatment had been worthwhile? And it goes on and it goes on and it goes on. So how could we ever be expected to validate everybody and meet everybody else's expectations? We don't know the motive behind why this person might have said that they didn't feel it had done much. We don't know the goings on. We don't know their relationship. People say things for lots of different reasons. It's just so many variables, just too many factors that are out of our control. But at the end of the day, it all boils down to each individual's journey that they've had in their life so far, what experience has formed their beliefs and their limiting beliefs, and how this is basically being reflected back to them. So all you can do as a practitioner is just take responsibility for yourself. Again, it's about taking your power back, grounding yourself, coming back to your centre, back to your middle, and knowing that you went into that treatment doing the best that you could do with the guidelines that we're given, the guidelines of how to inject safely, where to inject, what product to select. That is all we can do, and the rest of it is just out of our control. But what we do as practitioners is we make it about us. and we put ourselves into the equation. You wouldn't do that in the hospital setting. If you'd been shown, for instance, how to put a catheter in or take blood or whatever procedure it might be, you've been taught that procedure, you've been signed off to know you can do it competently, you've done it hundreds of times. If something goes wrong, but you've followed the guidelines and followed everything the way you should, you don't tie yourself up in knots as being part of it. You somehow have this different kind of separation. You're able to kind of separate yourself from the procedure. My background's coronary care. If somebody came in and they were having a cardiac arrest and we got the defibrillator out, followed the guidelines for the particular rhythm that they were in, and that person didn't make it, we wouldn't make it about us and that it's something that we've done. We've followed the guidelines correctly, did everything that we were supposed to do, that we've been told is a safe way to do things and it's the best way to treat that particular concern. We can separate ourselves and know that everything else was just out of our hands. It's about loosening the grip and just loosening the control a little bit. So I'm not saying, when we're talking in terms of external validation, I'm not saying you don't want happy clients. Of course you do. Everybody wants just happy clients, easygoing, come, love the work that you do. You wouldn't be human if you didn't want that. That's completely normal. But it's also being able to deal with those moments where you don't quite meet somebody's expectations. Somebody isn't ecstatic about the results. It's making sure that when those moments happen, it's not crushing you, it's not knocking you off your centre, it's not making you question your worth, it's not making you want to jack the business in. It's remembering how to come back to yourself and know that the law of averages, the more people that you treat, the more people that come through your door, the more different personalities you're treating, the more different levels of expectations you're treating, but not to make it about you and make it where you're starting to question yourself and your level of skill and your level of self-worth. Sometimes there might be a little bit of reflection required, as in, did I really set those expectations in that consultation process? Did I make sure she really understood? And sometimes you might look and think, maybe I could have done that a little bit more, and you'll reflect and you'll learn on that and you'll remember for next time. But in the majority of people, even if you have set those expectations and you've gone through everything thoroughly in a consultation, you've done it to the best of your ability, sometimes it's just not quite hitting the mark for the person that's come through the door. And more often than not, how you do one thing is how you do everything. So don't take it personally. The hairdresser that they go to probably has the same issues. The beautician that they go to. I mean, I know this in my line of work because obviously I'm linked with a really busy salon spa in the town that I work in, and more often than not, many of us we can deal with the same kind of clients and we have the same experiences in the beauty side with them. So do not take it personally. How people do one thing is how they do everything. But if you're really relying on constant external validation and you get that one that's just not quite happy and it crushes you, I want you to try and get a handle on this now. Because if we don't, it really kind of holds us back in all areas, really. And then next, I'm going to touch on external validation in aesthetics in the whole arena of networking. So networking events, award ceremonies has just never been my thing. Ever. Don't like them. I just don't like the whole ethos of what it's around. In this industry, it can be really like superficial. I remember going to my first networking event when I first started in 2010, and I was just like, what the hell? It was all so in ego. Very people just so self-aware of themselves, all about what handbag you're wearing, what shoes you've got on. Oh, who knows who? It honestly repelled me. It just made my skin crawl because it's just not me at all. And I kind of had these realizations at these networking events. I met some lovely people, don't get me wrong. Some people that were really on a same kind of energetic level as me, but there were those that were kind of put on a pedestal and that we were supposed to look up to and worship. And I'd just be like, no, absolutely not. I'm so rooted, I guess, in myself and my ethics and what I'm about. I couldn't put these people on a pedestal. In fact, I used to think to myself, I've come from a normal working class town, and I was thinking about a lot of my ladies, and I thought, if they had to walk into that kind of clinic, that real normal sort of down-to-earth personal touch, where that you can make somebody feel comfortable, beautiful as they are, not feeling that they're lacking in anything. All you're doing is just helping that person solve a particular issue that's bothering them, then to me, that is enough. But more often than not, at these big conferences and these big events, you'd have this person on stage that was classed as some kind of guru that, don't get me wrong, probably really skilled in delivering the injections, but it was everything else that went behind it. So it was, these poor people would be sat on stage and the whole audience would have to point out what they felt were wrong with that person's face. I was just like, what kind of world is this? What kind of superficial world is this? And like I say, I just thought about the lovely ladies that come through my door and how crushed they would be and what kind of fear that would implant into their subconscious. And I just thought, no, this is just not for me. This is not what I'm about. So I've tended to kind of stay away from them. Apart from in terms of kind of professional development and revalidation, a lot of the conferences I had to go to. And I remember being so, again, rooted in my beliefs around aesthetics. To me isn't about changing faces. It's about working with people that love themselves, working with people that just love themselves so much that they just want to slow down what they've naturally got and love for as long as they can. And that is it. They just want to look fresh, healthy, and slow the aging process down. It wasn't about giving them something that they hadn't got. So I'm proud to say that were my ethos, and it has been for 16 years. But suddenly, let's talk about integrity, let's talk about embodiment. The clinics that were churning out the huge lips, that were changing young girls' faces, now they know the industry is kind of coming around to my way of thinking. Not that I'm all this and that, but I'm just saying it was my belief system for so many years. Suddenly, they're sending out marketing messages now that they're all about regeneration and natural. But you have to ask yourself, really? Are you embodying that? Embody who you are. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with being about changing faces. That's fine if that's your ethos. It's just not personally mine. But I wouldn't suddenly try and change my ethos to match how I felt the trajectory of the collective was kind of going, to suit my own needs. And you won't ever see my ethos change. Look back over 16 years. I know my social medias have gone for now, but my ethos has been the same. I could have cashed in on the young girls, on the big lips, on the changing faces way back when and made a lot more money. But no, I chose to come from a place of embodiment and integrity and staying true to what I feel is right for me and my values. And it's worked well for me long term. It's been a slower game, but I've got most of my clients, well in the 90%, are completely aligned with what I embody, what my ethos is. And I'm really proud of that. And I'm not going to suddenly start changing my ethos when I feel it's with trends for seeking external validation and more money. Stay true to who you are and the rest will follow. So in terms of networking and seeking that external validation there, don't worry about it. Just have a few select close people that are completely aligned with you and your vibe. I've got a handful of aesthetic colleagues that I know were of the same ethos, were of the same mindset. We can bounce off each other. We've got each other for support. I don't need to go to fancy events and schmooze and seek external validation. Quite confident, thank you, and rooted in who I am to not need any of that shit. I'm sorry if I'm swearing, but can you tell I get triggered by this subject? So I think why I'm more passionate about this and I wanted to speak about it today is because of all these Epstein files and scandals and all. The crux of it is all about networking, schmoozing, climbing those, what they feel are the social ranks, the social climbers, desperate to be part of the elite social crew, what that's been at the expense of exploitation, which to me is exactly the same. If you're taking on young girls, telling them that something's wrong with them, they need to fix the lips, they need to fix the shape of the face, they need to fix the chin. It's exploitation. It's exactly the same, just on a completely different level. So I guess it's just a case of remembering that. And again, with the Epstein files, all these so-called spiritual gurus that I myself have succumbed to, I've put them on pedestals because it's a huge interest of mine. So people like Deepak Chopra, I definitely at one point put Deepak Chopra on some kind of pedestal in terms of his meditations and I used to do his 21-day meditations that he teamed up with Oprah Winfrey. In fact, I've still got the app on my phone now. When I did my yoga teacher training, my yoga teacher was his personal yoga instructor when she was a bit younger. And you do put these people on pedestals. Richard Branson, I remember way back when, 20 odd years ago, reading Richard Branson's autobiography, finding his journey really inspiring. But it just goes to show that we put people on pedestals, but we don't often know who they really are, what they embody truly, and what they're about. So again, the message is just go back within and bring that power right back to you and yourself, because if you don't tune out that outside noise, those distractions, if you don't take time for peace, for simplicity, time to just be able to sit comfortably with yourself, to reflect without scrolling through your phone, without the constant pinging and notifications, you can't connect with yourself, and you can't ever really connect on a level to know who you really are, what you truly want, and to know that you actually hold all the power right inside, right within. It's right there inside to connect with. And just to finish off with external validation, let's talk about award ceremonies. A huge trigger of mine. So I have never ever bought into the whole award ceremony thing, paid loads of money for a ticket to sit round a table to be validated externally. I just can't think of anything more. For me, it just feels quite repulsive. I feel like it's a bit like, oh, please pick me, tell me I'm worthy, The only validation I need is making sure that I try and do my best for everybody that comes through the door. That's enough. As I've said, I know you can't always please 100% of people 100% of the time, but if I'm shooting for 80% and 80%'s happy, that's fine by me. If I'm getting up every morning knowing I'm doing what I can to the best of my ability, that's all I can do. Nobody can ever ask more of you than your best. And that was, one line that my lovely Nana really kind of hammered home to me. I'd be leaving the house, rushing around, going to do an exam for my nursing or whatever it was, interview. She'd just say to me, you can only do your best, kid. She always spoke like that. Nobody can ask more of you, of your best. And if that isn't good enough, so be it. And it was just like, it used to make me breathe out and just think, yeah, what can anybody ask of me more than just trying my best, and that I know I've done the best I could. And it's out of my hands. I can walk away knowing I did my best, and that is it. So the whole award ceremony, I went to one for the first time last year, which just completely reaffirmed to me everything that I thought. As well as seeking external validation, it's also a case of the networking. More often than not, it's who knows who wins the awards. You're paying a lot of money to sit round a table, eat fancy food and drink, to be rejected. Remember, it's not rejection at all, but you kind of get where I'm coming from. So no, that's not for me, I'm afraid. I don't seek external validation that way. And I just encourage you to just have a think about that, and don't be crushed, if you've gone to an awards ceremony and you've not won anything, or because you don't need it. You are whole, you're complete, and you're amazing just as you are. You don't need the external validation. And be okay with that. And you know what? Be okay with things sometimes not working out the way that you expect. That door still isn't opening. Trust that. Let go of control and just trust that. Trust that, okay then, maybe, it might just not be meant for me. And I'll trust that something better's come in. But what I don't want anybody to do is give up and question themselves and give up this lovely business that they've created because they haven't got a handle on all the issues that come from projections, from triggers, from seeking validation outside ourselves, and looking at our limiting beliefs and our perfectionist tendencies and people-pleasing tendencies and our beliefs around money. Could go on and on, which is what all these podcast episodes are about. But yeah, just loosen the grip a little bit. Know you're whole, you're complete, you're amazing just as you are. Search for those snippets where you can get a little bit of inner peace to just soften the body, breathe deep, relax, and know that you're okay. Stay in that place inside your body of calm, of peace as much as you can, and really feel when things are bringing you off your centre and taking you away from that kind of energy. So, long ramble today. It's starting to snow actually now. It's so cold, so I'm going to head back to the car. I shall catch up with you all soon, and I hope that's helped. Remember, you're amazing, you're whole, you're complete, and I shall speak to you soon.
Thank you for listening to this episode. I hope you discovered some useful tips and takeaways. Don't forget to please rate, review and subscribe, and as always, pass on to a friend who you think will find this podcast super useful.